going to New York Comic Con and presenting the full trailer to the crowd there, which I think was 4,000 people or something like that, with the actors was, I mean, that was incredibly exciting. And just feeling the response of an audience who you could barely see because you're on stage and the lights in your eyes,
blasted with light.
It just was an overwhelming experience. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's why we do this. Like, it's moments like this that really pull everything together.
Coming to you from Crunchyroll HQ, this is The Anime Effect, where each week we bring you interviews with amazing people from across the world of anime. That's directors, actors, artists, and so much more. And they come on and they discuss their work and their anime favorites. It's pop culture with an anime lens.
Oh, it feels good. Feels good. I'm back.
Yes, welcome back. So last week when you were in Japan, and Haley Wiseman and I were able to speak with Dean Lorey, who there are very few people out there doing it like Dean right now. He had a very booked and busy 2024. Yep. Of course, he is Emmy-nominated screenwriter and author and showrunner of animated shows like Harley Quinn, Kite Man, Hell Yeah.
Both of which are hilarious.
Yeah. And his newest animated show, Creature Commandos, releases on Max, which is where I saw, when I first saw, I remember seeing Kite Man, Hell Yeah for the first time. And I was like, whoa, I need to know what this is about.
Yep.
That releases on December 5th. And we got some sneak peeks on what fans can expect in this new DC show.
I'm super excited for this interview. Our producer Carla was like, "Oh, I wish you were here for this one. I need your comic knowledge." But I'm sure you guys did amazing. I'm excited to hear it. I'm super excited for Creature Commandos.
Yeah.
Like, it was everywhere when I was in NYCC. So yeah,
it was a fun one. I'm your host, Leah President.
It's me returning from Japan. LeAlec Murray.
And we are here together once more, reunited, to see just how powerful the effect of anime really is. So there's a lot to catch up on. Obviously, you were out the past 2 weeks having an amazing adventure in Japan.
Work excursion.
Once more. So, yeah, let's talk about some things that happened in the past few weeks. I mean,
I think we should talk about a pretty big one that I think we might have glossed over. But we won a gold and silver award at the Signal Awards.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. Eagle screams. Somebody put an eagle scream wherever you are in the chat, sound effects, whatever. What's happening?
It makes me want to hyperventilate, honestly.
Yeah, I honestly still can't believe it. So on the gold front, we got best co-host team. That is awesome. We were up against some heavy hitters in that one.
Yeah, shout out to you, to Nick, to all of our amazing guest hosts, Haley, Alex, Jocelyn. We couldn't do without them. And I think it just shows like how we're really connected to the subject matter itself. Like, we're all anime fans that get to talk about this awesome thing. So really, really cool and surreal to get that award. Of course,
on the silver front, we got best new podcast. I guess I'll take second on that. But I mean, we say it all the time. This show, we still feel like this is kind of just a little bitty show, and it's a lot of people that help put this show together. A lot of people that are in front of the camera and behind the camera. So I mean, I'm just ecstatic just for our freshman year for us to be recognized on two different fronts.
Yeah, so we were against some of my heroes, like Trixie and Katya.
Yeah.
Like, that was crazy. Like, so definitely a lot of like heavy hitters out there.
Yep.
Really fun to be a part of that. And I can't wait to see what else we accomplish. And it's just really surreal, basically.
And thank you to everyone that voted. That voted.
Thank you so much for voting.
It was a public vote.
We actually got the judges.
Yeah, we got the judges pick.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. We'll get an award in the office and we'll have to show it off.
Oh, yeah. We're getting the physical awards.
We'll have to.
We will. We're going to put them like front and center. Yes. We have video on Spotify now. So you'll be able to see our Signal Award front and center, hopefully. Coming up is that amazing interview that Haley and I had with Dean Lorey. Stick around for that. we have with us today Emmy-nominated screenwriter and author and showrunner of some of the best new animated shows out there right now, Dean Lorey.
Hello.
So hi, welcome to the Anime Effect. We're so happy to have you. If you've watched the Harley Quinn series or Kite Man, hell yeah, then you've seen Dean's work. I mean, Dean, you have 4 shows on the air in the second half of the year, 2 of which you co-created, and all 4 of which you are the showrunner. So that's pretty unheard of. And yeah, hats off to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, a super busy year. Yeah, welcome to the Anime Effect.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for joining us. We always start with one kind of unifying question with all of our guests, which is, what was kind of your gateway animation, whether it was a show or a movie? What was kind of the one series that you first remember really being interested in animation with?
Let's see, series. I guess it might have been. Actually, I'm going to say it was the Flintstones.
Okay.
But that's because I'm old. If that's the first one that you're looking for, it was probably that.
It was a great show, though. Yeah. Like, it's not a bad show to
Iconic
pick.
for sure.
Yeah.
Also like the live action with John or was it Goodman that did the live action?
Oh yeah. He was great. By the way, you couldn't have picked a more perfect guy than him for that.
Yeah, for Fred.
For Fred, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so how did that kind of spark your interest in animation?
Well, what I loved about it, and the Jetsons was up there for me, and all of those kind of shows, was how transporting it was. Particularly then, effects weren't like in their heyday at that point. So to sort of see, a prehistoric world or a futuristic world in those days was kind of it was exciting, and the sort of endless possibilities of it. Although now that I've produced animation, I realize there aren't really endless possibilities. It's still, there are some restrictions, but yeah, it spoke to me as a kid. And then there were all the Disney movies, which I loved, when I was younger, and all that stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned, now being in animation, that there's not endless possibilities. What are some of kind of the roadblocks that you've come up against now that you're working in animation?
Well, some of it is production. I started in live action, and I got really used to sort of doing things that way. And then when I had moved to animation, I thought, well, we can do anything because it's just going to be drawn. So you can go anywhere. You can have 1,000 sets, 1,000 people. But I realized in some ways it has a lot of the same, at least traditional animation has a lot of the same restrictions that live action does. There's a limited number of sets that you can realistically draw and create for a TV series. There's sort of a limited number of people that you can put in the frame without the quality of the animation going down very quickly. So that's not unlike live action. So unless you have truly unlimited resources, in which case there really is no limit. But learning that and learning how to write for animation was a little different from writing for live action. But the good thing about animation, for me, the great thing, one, it's working with the actors and the artists. I really enjoy that process. But it's also, it really is kind of freeing. And one of the things that when we were doing Harley that I really enjoyed was we tried to put stuff in the show that would normally fall out during the course of like making like a live action show or something like that, because it goes through so many hands and so many drafts and all of that, that the weirder stuff tends to kind of fall out of those things. And as you move forward, but with animation, and particularly with like Harley and Kite Man, we try to keep all that stuff in, even like mistakes that maybe the voice actors made in the booth and stuff like that. We loved all of the sort of bobbles and the talking over each other and all that, and it became sort of part of the experience of the thing. And you have a lot of bites at the apple with animation, because there are many times that you can go back and rewrite things and re-record things and reanimate stuff. Whereas with live action, you don't you have the one time to shoot it, and maybe you get some reshoots, but usually that's about it.
Yeah. That's really interesting to hear about, because I know that when I've kind of learned a bit about the anime process and how Japan works, it's a lot of their voice recording still kind of comes towards the end of the process, which is really different from what I understand from kind of Western animation. And so they can make some changes according to kind of like how the voice actors do things, but it's not as
a masterclass in timing, basically.
Yeah. It's not quite as open as you were mentioning about having kind of that freedom on the Western animation side.
That's really interesting. I didn't realize that they did that at the end of the process. I mean, with us, we record all the voice actors, then we call it a radio play, which for us involves laying together all the voice recordings and getting the timing pretty much exactly as we want it, because the adult animation, they're very sort of dialogue driven. And so we want the timing on that to be really good. And then when we iterate after that, we do scratch recording, which is basically the editors or the producers or frankly, whoever's around. If we rewrite something, they'll do the voices of the characters and we cut it in and then replace them with the real actors. So
interesting. Okay.
So that's kind of our process on Harley and Kite Man and Creature too.
And speaking of the two, for those who aren't familiar, your new series, Kite Man, hell yeah, which, first of all, what an eye-catching title. I remember seeing that, seeing the cover art and just being like, oh, I have to know what this is about. What an interesting name. But it's sort of a spin-off to the Harley Quinn series, right? Sort of with that connection. So, which obviously Harley Quinn, especially in recent years, extremely popular story, of course. What sort of non-negotiables or I guess special considerations did you take into developing the series sort of in the next natural step?
Well, I created the original Harley with Justin Halpern and Pat Schumacher. And when they were asking us for a spinoff, we had a lot of ideas, but we ended up gravitating to Kite Man, one, because it was a very unlikely idea, of all the characters, I don't think anybody really anticipated that we would pick that one to go with. But for us, part of it was the arc of the character during the course of the season. And no one, we felt, had a longer path to travel from going from nothing to everything like Kite Man, because he really was he doesn't even have a power. And so that was the core of it. So that was the thing that we always tried to keep going back to as, we were looking at how that was going to play out. And in terms of the comedy, we wanted the comedy to be very much the same as it was in Harley, really fast. And we really like to sort of lay dialogue on top of other dialogue and just keep it really moving. So that we wanted to be the same. But one of the things that we wanted to do to give it its own sort of identity was to make it essentially, this is really just about a group of losers who sort of find a way to shine by the end of it. And we thought of it more as a sitcom, whereas Harley was more of a sort of straight up action adventure series. So we liked the borrows the setting. In fact, we pitched it initially as Cheers with villains. And that was our pitch to Warner Brothers Animation. That was a way that made it a little more distinct from Harley, but we, at the same time, we wanted it to still feel like it had the DNA of that show. And that was what we tried to protect.
Yeah. That's the hell yeah of it all.
That's the hell yeah. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about this, but obviously you really started your career in live action television and only recently just kind of gotten to the animation part. So what kind of inspired you to start looking into exploring that side of making a series?
Justin, Pat, and I had worked on a short-lived live-action series called Powerless. And that was, kind of a workplace comedy involving superheroes. It was on NBC. And while we've been doing that, they had been talking to Warner Brothers Animation about maybe doing an R-rated Harley Quinn animated series. And actually, I think it was that Warner Brothers came to them and said, what about this? And so they asked me if I wanted to join. So that's really how it came about. We kind of like stumbled into it because it seemed like a really fun thing to do, and we like the idea of adult animations. So that's how it began. And we had a really steep learning curve, on Harley, because we'd never done animation before. So we were sort of like, we'll learn as we go, and we'll ask a lot of questions, and and try to listen to people. So we that's really where it came about, though.
Yeah, in that same vein, talking about sort of stepping into this new medium, was there anything that like surprised you in that process of like, oh, yeah, this is totally different now?
The voice recording was really different to me. And I was the initial voice recorder, the voice director rather, on Harley. And I remember going to the first session, and we had kind of stupidly decided to get all the actors together in a room much as we could to record it, which is actually not really typically the way that it's done. You normally record each actor separately. But I got there and sat down, and we had all these people in booth, and it's Alan Tudyk, and it was just all these like great actors. Mm-hmm. And I realized, I don't even know what I'm trying to do here. Like, I don't know what they're expecting out of me to get this. And I realized, like, boy, I am overmatched here. And, I did some screwing up because I had never done it before, but learned from it and then continued to refine how we do that. So that was a big learning curve. And a lot of it was learning how to trust the animators and how to trust what they were going to bring to it. Because in live action, you're largely spelling out every little thing that happens in the script. But in this case, there were some action sequences, where we sort of loosely described them in the hopes that they would, we knew they were going to be better at it than we were. So that was a fun process, sort of learning to trust them and them getting used to the way that we were doing it and going back and forth.
Yeah. Was there sort of like a moment or like a time in the series where you kind of got into that motion and, the clockwork started to take place?
Yeah, there was, when we were doing the pilot for Harley, we were really trying to find somebody who would get on board with what we were trying to do, which was to have action sequences happening at the same time as dialogue between the characters, so that they could be talking about really anything, preschool, whatever, like just having a natural conversation while fighting and killing people and stuff like that. And we really struggled with that at the beginning, because it wasn't the way that, at least at the time, Warner Brothers Animation was set up to do that kind of stuff. They were set up to sort of have, talk, then fight, then talk. And so, and putting them together was kind of like, it was, at the very least, it seemed new to them. And we were told by a lot of people, you just can't do that. It's too complicated. And we sort of felt like, well, there's surely somebody that can do that. And so there was a scene, it was in Arkham, in the pilot, where Harley and Ivy are trying to escape. They're fighting all the guards, and they're just really having a conversation like that. And this woman, Ceci, who later became the animation supervisor on, it was on Harley season 5, but she had done other things. She came in as a director and just boarded that one sequence to show us like how that could look. And we were like, that's it. That right there is the tone of how we want all that stuff to sort of happen, so that it's almost like casual coffee table conversation while you're killing people. So, that was a big moment of going like, that's it. That's how we want that to feel.
Yeah. And
Iconic.
Finding the absurdity as well in it.
Yeah.
Because when you're working in the comic DC universe, like there is a certain level of absurdity that you have to bring into the storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we did want to embrace like if we're going to animate it, it should be something that either can only be done in animation, or at least this was our thinking for these years, that can only be done in animation, or that the best expression of it is animation.
Yeah.
So that kind of informed it.
What are some animated projects that are really inspiring your work right now? Are there any that you're seeing or you're watching that are like, ooh, that really got something going in my brain?
One of the shows that I'm really loving right now is Blue Eye Samurai.
Yes.
Which was Like I thought I loved how elegant the story was, how sort of like beautifully drawn it was, and how serious it took its theme and all of that, while managing to be, very entertaining throughout. So to me, that was kind of a high watermark. I really loved I loved that one.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The animation is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your newest animated show, Creature Commandos, coming out December 5th. So this story follows like a group of military superhumans consisting of like a bunch of different creatures. So like a human, a werewolf, a vampire, like Frankenstein's monster. Not Frankenstein. A lot of people make that mistake.
Well, I will say Dr. Frankenstein is a character in it, but there's also Frankenstein's monster.
Yes.
And the bride of Frankenstein.
Exactly.
That's nice to know, though, because I feel like Dr. Frankenstein doesn't get, like, whenever Frankenstein's monster is in something that's not, like, a Frankenstein thing, like, Dr. Frankenstein just doesn't ever show up. They just, like, ignore that.
But yeah, we've got a whole cast of creatures coming in from a DC comic from way back in 2000. What kind of drew you to this story and made you want to bring it to life again?
Well, James Gunn wrote all the scripts. And when I was asked to come on board, I guess he'd written maybe 4 of the 7. And I was really struck by, actually what I was really struck by was the heart. It was, it was all the things that you wanted. It was filled with action and, there was humor and all of that, but there was such heart to it and such care for each of the characters in the series that I was just really, I was blown away by it. And also, I've not really done a show where somebody else fully wrote the series. So I didn't know where it was going. It's not like he sat down and said, here's what's going to happen in 5, 6, and 7. So I was just waiting like everybody else for those scripts to come in just to see what it was doing. So I was really hooked on the story, and and to have somebody of James's caliber to write those scripts was exciting. And I think that it has very much the same sensibility of Guardians of the Galaxy or his Suicide Squad. It's definitely in that world. So that's what really drew me to it.
Yeah. That's exciting to hear. You mentioned earlier that when you were working on like Harley and stuff, it was a lot of, okay, what about this series is like makes it need to be animated as opposed to like live action or anything like that. So what about Creature Commandos was like, okay, this is an animated series, or was it already decided to be animated by the time that you came on?
Well, it was already going to be an animated series from the start. However, it's interesting you bring that up because because James and Peter Safran, who co-run DC, they were very interested in it potentially being a live action series or movie. So the idea was to make an animated show that was, first of all, canon, and that could, lead into other things like that, depending on what the best expression of an idea would be like in the future. So when we cast all the voice actors, we were also trying to cast people that they wanted to play the live action versions of those characters as well. So it was a more complicated casting process than usual for that show. And that was another thing that was kind of exciting to me was the idea to be able to try to go seamlessly between animation and at some point potentially live action with the same people and just find different looks for it. So
is that something that we can look forward to, a live action in the future?
It's certainly on the table. I mean, I don't get to pick what happens, but it's certainly on the table. It would be great. It would be great to see it. But we're also like really excited about the animated series, and there's a real hope that we can do a season 2 of it. It's designed to be multiple seasons. So it turns out that James has a busy schedule. So
what? No way.
Showbiz.
We're all waiting. We're waiting for him to have some time to write season 2. So all he had to do was like finish Superman and finish Peacemaker and run DC. And
just small titles. Yeah,
all these small things. So, but he's very, very excited about the series. In fact, when we were at New York Comic Con, he was telling people it was his favorite thing that he had ever worked on. And
Whoa.
so he's excited. We're excited, and we are waiting for the world to get to see it because we feel like we have something to show.
Yeah, I mean, hearing that, I know the anticipation is building for me. Without giving us like any spoilers, what can fans kind of expect from this series coming into it?
Well, I mean, I think they could expect the same great action that James is known for. There's a lot of humor throughout, and I think you'll love the voice work from all the actors. But honestly, for me, it's the heart of the show. And every episode focuses on a different character, and we learn not just, where they stand in the story that we're telling, but sort of their origins. And so it's a great sort of tapestry of weaving all of that into this one overarching story. And I think it has great ambition.
I think those are some of my favorite, like when you have a series that is a cast that you haven't necessarily seen before that's been animated or anything like that, but it's a larger group cast or something, and you get that focus time on each of them and get to learn more about them. I think
give
that's
each
a great
character
way.
A chance to breathe.
Yeah, because otherwise it feels like there's too much that you're trying to shove into like an episode at a given time. So having that focus was really,
and it's nice
excited for that.
Also because like when you reveal a character's backstory and all that in the scope of the main story is important, because it changes the way that you think about that character, and it makes you sort of go back and reconsider maybe things that you've already seen with that character, and informs things going forward.
You mentioned learning things that make you reconsider what you've seen previously, and my mind just went like rewatchability. Let's go. People. I love series that I can watch like 4 times and I figure out something new every time.
Exactly.
So that's right up my alley.
We've been doing that ourselves. I mean, you got to rewatch them anyway as you're trying to make them. But, I find myself sometimes just putting them on for enjoyment, just to catch little details that I didn't realize it had been planned, James had planned from the start, just the way that all the little puzzle pieces fit together.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just talking with Alex about rewatching the Arcane series with the new new season coming out as well. I don't know if you have been watching Arcane or seen the previous season.
I watched a little bit of the first season, and now that the new season is coming out, I was thinking that's like a perfect binge to do the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah. It really captured it. That was like a moment when it came out. Like it really captured like everybody's hearts and TVs, I guess. But so as we kind of close our time out today, and thank you again so much for joining us on the show. Sure. One, I want to know if there are any, looking back at everything that you've accomplished in 2024, do you have like a favorite moment or something that, you're going to look back at this season just like that was the gem of my year?
Well, I have to say, going to New York Comic Con and presenting the full trailer to the crowd there, which I think was 4,000 people or something like that, with the actors that was incredibly exciting. And just feeling the response of an audience who you could barely see because you're on stage and the lights in your eyes.
Blasted with light.
It just was an overwhelming experience. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's why we do this. Like, it's moments like this that really pull everything together. So that was probably my favorite moment. It was thrilling.
There's nothing that beats going on a stage at a convention and just hearing the
or so just meeting and seeing people in person. Like it's so cool to like go to conventions and see like how like all of these different anime fans so excited to like hear about their favorite shows, and there's just something about like the energy of an in-person, like a convention that there's like this hum in the air where everybody is ready to just be like thrilled about something and excited. Yeah, totally.
I mean, writers are not rock stars. And so it like, we don't have the feeling that often of being on stage in front of a giant crowd of people. So it's overwhelming, but very fun.
Yeah, for
absolutely.
Sure. As we sort of close out, is there anything else that you want to plug or anything else that you want to like have the fans watch out for that are up and coming projects for you?
Well, I would say I'm very hopeful that soon I can announce another project in the Harleyverse. So we're waiting, fingers crossed, for a pickup of it soon. So I hope to be able to announce that because it's something I'm very excited about. And this is a totally different tangent, but I'm running Papa's House, which is a live action multicam that stars Damon Wayans Sr. and Damon Wayans Jr. And so I'm doing that now. So that just started airing. So I'll give a little shout out to that. It's fun and sweet and great.
Awesome.
But yeah, I look forward to being able to announce some new things.
Thank you again so much for joining us on the Anime Effect. It was so cool to hear about your inspirations and kind of like what you're up to and get a little peek behind the curtain at some of the new shows that are coming out this year. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. Welcome back anytime as well, because I'm pretty sure, with how the momentum that you had in 2024, I'm sure we're going to be hearing great things again from you in 2025. So friend of the show, we'd love to have you back anytime.
That would be great. I appreciate it, and I'll be there.
And
all right,
for those listening at home, be sure to check out Harley Quinn and Kite Man. Hell yeah!
Hell yeah!
There's just something so satisfying about saying that.
Really
and of course, Creature Commandos coming out in December.
Yes.
All right. Bye. Thank you again.
Great. Bye.
That was incredible. I wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
But I'm sure with all the stuff that Dean is working on, this will not be his last time here.
For sure.
So, I've missed this. I've missed it so much. We have some recommendations. From Dane via our question form. Please use the question form.
The Great Dane.
The Great Dane. If there were any other genres of media you would like to talk about besides anime, what would it be?
I mean, this is an easy one, right? Last week I was talking about Elder Scrolls Legends.
Yep.
We talked about like tabletop games. So basically nerd. I can just hear it being blank, the expletive being blanked out. But yeah, I would love to talk more about, I love like obscure video game lore. I love like tabletop gaming. I'm a huge like music nerd too. I know you are with your experience in radio, which is so cool why we get to have like so many musicians on the pod too. Because it's like, I could talk all day with them about stuff like that.
For sure.
What about you, Lee?
Like you said, this is just be all nerd. Honestly, it would probably be because I read so many like comic books just outside the norm of like being in the world of like manga and anime. So it'd be that probably something tokusatsu centered because it's all over the zeitgeist now with Godzilla becoming bigger and Ultraman is finally making its push to the States and Kamen Rider's not too far behind and Power Rangers and all that stuff. So, I mean, I would love to do that as well because I feel like there's a lot of lore there. And I guess on the back half, probably like video games. Like I mean, we're all avid players.
Yeah, I see Lee on his phone all the time, like playing different video games.
I'm all over the place.
Different little pocket video games.
So, I would love to do that too. So I probably, first and foremost, it was probably like comic book because that's kind of where I started my like podcast career, kind of like at the beginning when I started doing my own stuff. And then kind of to circle back to that and do something new because comics is forever changing. So.
Yeah, I've also always been super fascinated with like companion podcasts to like a TV show or a certain series or a certain like genre. Like some people do like podcasts dedicated to like the horror genre and like talking about specific movies. I would love to do that mostly because I think the way that people view things nowadays has changed so much.
Yeah, agreed.
It feels like a lot of people's like interests in movie and TV is a very like private viewing experience now. Like I feel like people just will like either binge things on a flight or like you get home from work and you just
don't
like
really have a lot of conversations around it anymore.
And I think it'd be really cool to like build something around that.
I think that was kind of the cool thing about like, coming out of, like in COVID and like post COVID is that I feel like we were having a lot more conversations about like shows that were, relevant. But yeah, I feel like, when you talk about companions, like when Black Panther 2 came out, Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's an incredible writer, creator, he did a companion podcast for Black Panther 2 and it was incredible. So I'm kind of with you. I would love to see more stuff around that.
And then we have a recommendation from you at home. This one is coming from Adam, who wrote in via our question form. Backstabbed in a backwater dungeon or a loner's life in another world. Those sound like two anime for like people who like get trust issues. like I was backstabbed and I was like a loner in another world. That's so
the isekai
funny.
button. It has returned. Upon my return, the
it's
isekai
flipped
button
upside
has
down,
returned.
but yeah.
Yeah, so that's Rex.
Yeah, thank you for writing in. We always love to hear from you.
Yeah. All right, guess it's time for the mailbag.
Mailbag! I think this question will be mostly for you, Lee.
Is it me coded?
I know you're a big MHA fan. This comes from Tino Toothless 123 via Apple Podcasts.
What up, Tino?
They ask, what is your most favorite, and that's in all caps, moment, and your least, in all caps, favorite moment from MHA? And what would you change in your least favorite moment? That's a hard one.
That's hard, especially like I'm trying to.
If someone asked me that about like Attack on Titan, I would not know what to say.
I'm trying to figure out if I should give the anime only answer. I'm gonna give the anime only answer because if I give the manga answer, it's gonna spoil some people. I feel like just kind of as a least favorite moment overall. I feel like the One for All quirk is very complicated, because there's so many quirks inside that one mass quirk. So I feel like they could have...
And the quirks are their powers.
Their powers,
for those who haven't seen it.
So I feel like because we don't... I feel like this would have been a rare opportunity for Horikoshi Sensei to really kind of explain the power sets and kind of explain the power leveling in MHA. But I feel like that would have been a perfect opportunity to really show... like just up and down, like this is kind of what this means, because we really don't, we find out little bits about the previous users, but not enough, I feel. So I feel like that's kind of my least favorite part of MHA.
More lore.
There's some times where I like, and it's probably because of my comic booky side. Like sometimes I wish like with manga that are superhero based, like I wish there would be more lore, right? Because you know, and it probably is somebody that's hunted way too much lore in Destiny.
And this is coming from people that read like like I've read like the Silmarillion, like I'm loving lore.
I'm a fiend for extra lore. And then if you're talking favorite moment, man, there's a lot. This is super recent. So Mechmite, Robomite, whatever we're calling him, the round 3 between All for One and All Might I thought was an incredible moment, especially because like we go through a lot of the series thinking that All Might is just done, right? Because, you know, he finally passes his quirk Deku, and then when they're in the big like siege of Japan, All Might's like, no, I got one more for you. I'm not going to be helpless. So I love that he just pulls out this Iron Man briefcase and he's just like, all right, cool. I'm just half mech now. We're just going to do this. And I thought that was such a cool moment because it's, you know, even though we shifted further and further away from All Might as the seasons went on to focus on the kids. And I thought it was a really great moment to kind of just kind of reignite kind of the older like hero fan base, because up until then it was like, the rankings kind of dropped off for heroes and you didn't really like, Endeavor's number 1, but a lot of people didn't trust Endeavor. And then this was kind of a cool moment to kind of see All Might loop back into that, like, oh, I was the number 1. I'm going to make sure you remember. And it was such a cool moment. So I was really happy to see that. If you guys want to ask me anything else, just hit me up on social and I'll wax poetic about it.
With the extremely extremely specific MHA questions.
Yeah, I'll take them all day.
Yeah.
Tino, thank you so much. That was awesome. Again, if you guys have any questions for us, please definitely not only make those comments on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, but also now Spotify, but also use that question form. It is got.cr/anime effect questions. Again, that's got.cr/anime effect questions.
You got it.
I see what you did there. All right. That's it. Wow, that was
quick.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of the Anime Effect, brought to you by Crunchyroll, and the folks over at Sony Music Entertainment. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
The Anime Effect is hosted by me, Leah President, LeAlec Murray, and Nicholas Friedman.
Papa Friedman.
In the blank chair. We are executive produced by Jonathan Hirsch, Joanna Clay, and Nicholas Friedman. Our lead producer is Kyla Carnero, and our associate producer is Zoe Culkin. Vince Garza filmed, and Zachy Peltz edited the video. Our head of production is Sammy Allison. Special thanks to Carla Solorzano and Tamika Balance-Kolosny. We'll be back next week with even more anime, of course. See you then.
Later days, y'all. There's nothing you can do about it. I've been waiting all week to say that. There's nothing you can do about it. We're back. We're so back.